Hey everybody, Don Georgievich here with Job Interview Tools. Today I'm going to do something a little bit different for you. I'm going to tell you my story about how I got started and why I do what I do and all the struggles that I encountered throughout my career and my job search. And I don't know if that'll help you or not, but it might give you a little bit of perspective on what I've been through and why I do what I do. So way back when, back in the early days when I graduated college, I went to community college and I got a degree in computer systems and stuff like that. It was basically a degree that you would go out and work on computers and repair computers and stuff like that. So back then, I had my sights set on working for IBM. I loved IBM. I liked everything about IBM. I thought I liked the prestige of IBM, and I just wanted to be there no matter what. So all throughout college, I probably spent 3 years there getting 2 degrees, and I just couldn't wait to graduate so I could go off and get that job at IBM. I was just so excited about it. And after I graduated, I went and applied to IBM and, anxiously awaited a reply. And, well, they said no. They didn't even want to interview me. They weren't interested. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, maybe I'll try another office. And so I tried another office, and nothing happened. And here I am. I just graduated college. And I only had a part-time job. I was a salesman at Radio Shack. I don't think Radio Shack's around anymore today, but that's where I worked at all through college and paid my way. And so after college, I quit Radio Shack because I just knew another job was going to come along. And weeks and weeks and weeks went by where I got nothing. Just absolutely nothing. Nobody interested. And, well, I needed some money. So the first job I had out of college was selling life insurance. I was a life insurance salesman for about a day and a half. And I didn't like it. It wasn't what I wanted to do. So after working a day and a half as a life insurance salesman, I left that work and I tried to find something else. And weeks and weeks and weeks went by. Nothing. Nobody interested. Nobody wanted to hire me for anything. I had even tried getting a job as a vacuum cleaner salesman for the Kirby Corporation. Now, they would have hired me, but it was all commission. There was no pay. So I passed on that too. And so as I went on, one of the first jobs that I had was selling computers at a retail computer store. And my whole degree was to repair computers, not sell them. But since people thought I was good at selling computers because I had a job at Radio Shack, they hired me to sell computers. So I worked that for maybe 3 months, and then I got fired. My first job out of college, and I got fired. And I got fired because I wasn't happy there, and I was telling some of the other people that I was looking for a job, some of my coworkers there. Lesson learned, don't tell anybody you're looking for a job that you work with, because they're going to go tell the manager and get you fired. So, again, I'm out of work again. And now, this time, it's not weeks, but it's months and months and months go by before I get something. And then again, I land another computer sales job, and I work that for a couple of months, and I get fired. I've been fired a lot in my career. And so as I go on, all the while I'm looking for jobs, I'm sending letters to IBM. Sending letters because I want to work for IBM. I just write cover letters. Here's my resume. I sent them all over the country. I sent them, to California. I sent them to Florida, Georgia, wherever there was an IBM office. I sent a letter. And I got to a point where I saved all the rejection letters that I would get. See, back in those days, they would always send a rejection letter, postal, to your home. And as I recall, I had 100 rejection letters from IBM. Was I discouraged? No. Disappointed? Yes. But I kept trying. I kept sending letters, trying to just get the interview with IBM. So one day I thought I'd try something a little bit different, and I sent a letter to IBM in Boston. I always wanted to work in Boston. And I said, hey, I'm actually going to be visiting some friends here in next month. And I wondered, since I'm going to be in Boston, I wonder if you have some time to meet with me. And they agreed. This was my first interview with IBM. I had to ask for it. And they interviewed me. And I was a disaster, and I interviewed just poorly. They asked me all kinds of questions, and I just kind of him-holed around and just gave some really bad answers now that I look back on it. And and obviously a week later, they sent me a rejection letter saying, well, Mr. Georgevich, thank you very much for your time at IBM. We enjoyed meeting you, but we have nothing available for you at this time. We'll keep your resume on file, blah, 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 blah. I have that phrase memorized down pat because I've only heard it about 10,000 times. Seriously, I've gotten more rejection letters than anybody I know, and more from IBM than probably anybody on the planet. I don't think anybody was as determined to work for IBM. So after 101 rejection letters from IBM, I finally said, you know what? Probably isn't going to work out. I better try something else. So I set my sights in other places. I tried Apple Computer. They weren't interested either. I might have tried them a few times, but all the while, I'm just, here I am probably 2 or 3 years out of college, and I still don't even have a job in my field. My field was to work on and repair computers. Couldn't get anything. Nothing would come my way. And it was pretty depressing. And there were times where, I had a job for a couple of months, and then I was out of work for a couple of months, then I had a job for a couple of months. It was just very depressing. And finally, one day, NASA in Cleveland, Ohio called me up, and they were interested in me. Not for my technical abilities, but for my sales abilities, because the only jobs I could get was selling computers, and they actually wanted somebody in a role who could work with different technology vendors and invite them into the lab. So it was kind of a salesy job, but kind of technical. So anyway, I got a job with NASA, and I spent about 4 years there. And then we had some contract shuffling, and I'm out of work again. Now, this time I'm out of work, but this time, well, I met my wife at NASA. So now I'm married and I'm out of work. And, months and months and months go by because I haven't interviewed for 5 years. I'm very rusty. And, back in those days, you couldn't get any help. There was no YouTube. There were no books on interviewing. There was nobody to teach you how to do anything. I mean, I was so desperate. The only people I knew and trusted were my high school professors, my teachers at high school. So I went back there. I'm like, hey, what do? I got these interviews. Nothing's happening. How am I supposed to get jobs? And they're like, well, you just send out your resume and something will happen. Well, so they didn't really know either. And nobody I reached out to knew really how to interview, how to write resumes, how to get jobs. Nobody knew. There was nothing there. I'm all alone, and I'm just having to figure this stuff out, and well, I can't. I'm not figuring it out because nothing's happening. I'm sending out resumes and getting interviews. Nothing's happening. Nothing's clicking. All I do is get first interviews, and I'm out. So finally, few months after NASA, something falls my way, and I'm working there for a couple years. And then after a couple years, I get bored, so I move on to something else. And then I think I worked for Unisys for just a couple of months. And I don't think Unisys is around anymore either, but it was supposed to be a technical job, but there was nothing to do. So I got bored and I left, and I went to another job, and this is where I was a business consultant, where I would work with businesses in the Cleveland area and install their computer systems and things like that and help them with some office automation. And that was probably one of the most favorite places that I look back on, most fondest place I ever worked, because we had a lot of different engineers that I worked with, and it was just a really tight, close family. And then year 2000 came along, and maybe you don't know anything about that, but that's when everybody in IT lost their job, and companies just slashed their workforces. And here I am. I'm caught up in that, and I get laid off. This time I'm married, I have a house, I have cars, and I have a little boy. So now I'm out of work and I really have bills to pay. And I have people, my family, depending on me. And this time I'm out of work for 6 months. 6 months, absolutely no income. I mean, yeah, you get unemployment, but it's not even enough to feed you. And so out of work, and again, I'm back in, the interview game, playing the game, still not able to make anything click. And here I am, I'm out of college probably 10 years now, and I'm still not effective at interviewing. I'd go in, I'd interview, and they'd be like, okay, thanks, Mr. Georgevich, we'll let you know. And it was just the same thing over and over and over again. I wasn't making the connection. So I'm out of work for 6 months. Finally, something comes my way, and another consulting job similar to what I had. And I worked there for a year and a half, felt so good. And then, after a year and a half, they downsized. So I'm out of work again. This time I have two boys, and I'm married, and I got a house, and I got car payments. Now it's really desperate. Now my wife's not working. I got mouths to feed, and no money coming in. We're maxing out our credit cards to pay for everything, just to keep our heads above water. And I'm out of work for probably 6 to 8 months this time. And near the end of the 6 to 8 months, I start putting things together, and I start figuring out what to tell interviewers, but just a little bit. I'm just getting better at it. So after 6 to 8 months, the only job that came my way was a temp job. It was a 3-week temp job where I would go in, and it was for ExxonMobil, and they said, one of our people, they're going into the hospital for 3 weeks, and we need someone to just kind of sub their position, answer the phone, do a couple little things, while they're gone. And then after that, you're out. So it was just a 3-week contract position and hardly paid anything. And I'm like, I'll take it. I don't care. So I take this 3-week temp job, and I go in there and they show me what to do. And they're like, hey, this guy's working on a couple of different projects. If you want to dabble with those, go ahead. But don't worry, he'll work on them when he comes back. So I start working there, and I start diving into these projects because there really wasn't anything else to do. So I just dove into these projects, and I finished them in 3 weeks. I was done, and they were up, and they were running. The projects were working. And after 3 weeks, they actually hired me. And they told the other guy who went in for surgery that, you don't have to come back. They actually fired him and took me on because I got his work done overnight, literally. And I really felt bad. I mean, that's the worst thing. You go in the hospital, get some surgery, you come back and your job's gone. And I felt very bad about that, but not too bad. I'd been out of work for 8 months, and I had no money. I had no nothing. I needed something, so some full-time employment was great, and better me than him. So I stay at ExxonMobil for a few years. And this is where I really start honing in some interview skills, because I had been practicing, interviewing a lot, and I'd actually done a little bit of interviewing with some candidates and things like that. So at ExxonMobil, I was project manager and worked on a lot of different technical aspects, and I would interview candidates there. So I had so much experience with, interviewing and failed interviews that, going to the other side of the table and interviewing candidates was just a very natural progression for me. And so I spent a few years at NASA, or not at NASA, but at Exxon, interviewing candidates and working on things and stuff like that. And then I got bored with working at Exxon. I left there and I went to work for a small computer company. And I worked there for 6 months, and they downsized and went out of business. So I'm out of work again. I mean, I don't think anybody's been out of work and fired from more jobs than me. Here I am, once again, out of work, 2 kids, house payment, car payments, wife, the whole thing. And, money's just flying out the window, just trying to, keep the whole household going. But by this time, I'm actually a lot better at interviewing. I've come to the point where I could literally interview for a job and almost, I don't want to say 9 times out of 10, but maybe about 6 times out of 10, 6 or 7 times out of 10, I could tell them what they wanted to hear. I could impress them enough to where they're like, yeah, we like what you're saying. You understand us. We want you on board. I was getting to the point where I had more job offers than I could handle, which was actually a good position to be in. But literally that probably took me, 20 years to really figure out how to go into an interview and, present myself to an employer so that, that they'd want to hire me. Finally, you could say I cracked the code. And so getting another job was relatively easy at this point in my life. And so picked up another job, worked there for a couple of years, got tired of that and said, you know what? I'm kind of tired of information technology and working in the corporate world. So that's when I broke away from that and I started Job Interview Tools, where I started off teaching people how to interview for jobs so that they didn't have to go through everything that I went through. I created my first book, and it was a question and answer book, and it taught people how to answer. Why do you want to work here? Tell me about yourself. All these different questions to give people some clarity on what they should be doing in the interview. Because back in the early days, I had nothing. Nobody taught me how to answer any questions. It took me 15 or 20 years to figure all that stuff out. And so now I could take all of that knowledge that I have from interviewing with employers to being an interviewer, and take all that knowledge and compress it and put it into a program that I could teach other people so that they can compress decades into days and literally learn what took me 15 years in just a couple of days. So doing that was actually very fulfilling. It was just such a great gift to be able to give back, and that's really what Job Interview Tools is all about. It's about me giving back, to everybody else, so that they don't have to go through what I went through. There's no reason to waste 15 years of your life figuring out how to interview for jobs when I can teach you how to do it in a couple of days. And that means you can get on with more important things in your life. And so that's really what Job Interview Tools is all about, and how it came to be. And now I've been working on Job Interview Tools probably for about 15 years now. We've expanded. We teach people how to write resumes, how to teach them write cover letters, answer questions. I do specific coaching with people. It's just the most beautiful gift that I have that I can share with the entire world, because way back in the day, there was really no way to share it. I mean, fortunately, with YouTube and the internet and things like that, it's so much easier to be able to share my voice to literally everybody on the planet. And so to be able to help so many people in this way, people I don't even know, all over the world that I just don't even know, to be able to just help them go a little bit further, help them land that job so that they can provide for their family, is just the most beautiful gift. And that's one of the things that I really love about the work that I do here at Job Interview Tools. And I do have a little bit of an announcement for you. Like I said, I've been doing this for about 15 years. And one of the things that's really come to light is that I hear a lot from candidates that employers don't know how to conduct an interview. And you would think that they would, but they don't. And what the real problem is, they don't know how to bring out the best in someone. I mean, employers get fantastic candidates across their desk all the time. But sometimes those candidates, they're a little bit shy and they don't know how to express themselves. And if you have a bad interviewer or somebody who just doesn't know how to interview a candidate, they don't know how to bring out the best in that person. And they just think that, they're a dud. And so they pass on them. And I hear about this all the time. A lot of my clients come to me. They're like, Don, these people don't know how to interview me. I have fantastic skills. I'm a little bit shy in the interview, but these guys, they just go straight and ask me, for some really stupid questions that don't make any sense. And then I end up failing the interview only because they didn't know how to interview me. So, like I said, I have a little bit of an announcement in that I'm going to be somewhat leaving Job Interview Tools, but not entirely. I'm still going to be here. I'm going to be going over to the other side, and I'm going to be a coach to employers. I'm going to be training their hiring managers on how to properly conduct an interview and how to bring out the best in a candidate, how to ask them the right questions so that that candidate can provide you with meaningful answers so that employers do a more effective job in interviewing so that they can find those great A-player candidates like you. And so I'm still going to make videos on YouTube for Job Interview Tools, but I'm only going to be spending a smaller portion of my time here and a larger portion working with employers and educating them. I mean, I feel like I've already done almost as much as I can do to help job seekers, and I think there's just so much more work on the other side that employers need help so that they can find you and find those diamonds in the rough. So I actually think my time will be better spent and more beneficial to you by me educating and teaching employers how to bring out the best in you. So I'll still be around. I'll still be creating job interview training programs. I'll be making videos. I'll be keeping all of my other programs up to date. But just majority of my time will be spent coaching employers. So, like I said, I don't normally do this. I don't normally share my story, but I just thought maybe you'd like to hear some of the things that I went through, some of the ups and the downs. I mean, it hasn't been easy. I mean, I've been fired, I've been laid off more than anybody. I've been out of work more than anybody. And I hope that by sharing my story, that that'll help you in some way, that maybe you'll say, you know what, this low point in my life that I'm going through right now is normal, and that it's supposed to happen this way, and that if I just keep my nose to the grindstone, things will pick up again, and they will. That everything will get better. You just have to keep trying. I mean, I know you might be in a lull right now in your career, and maybe you're just not sure what you should be doing or where you should be going, and maybe nothing is making any sense to you at all. But I'll tell you this, stay focused on where you're going. Just stay focused on what you want and where you're going, and you will get there. Maybe not as soon as you think, but it will happen. Now, a wise man, Zig Ziglar, one of my favorite speakers, always said, when you take your eyes off your goals, all you see are obstacles. And I heard that many, many years ago, probably 30 years ago, and that phrase has always stuck with me. And it's just a part of me now. And I always think about it. All you see are obstacles when you take your eyes off your goals. And it still happens. As focused and disciplined as I think I am, sometimes I get distracted too. And, I'm aiming for something, or maybe I'm really not aiming for anything at all, but I want to get somewhere, and I go back and I think, okay, well, we just took our eyes off of our goals, and now all we can see are problems. Seriously. It's all you can see are problems. As soon as you just stop focusing on where you're headed. And so I will leave you with that, my friend. I will leave you with that. All you see are obstacles when you take your eyes off your goals. Remember that, stick with that, make that a part of your daily life and your routine, and that will pull you out of any kind of rut that you're ever in. Guaranteed. It's worked for me my whole career. That's just been my go-to phrase, for everything, and I think it will help you too. So again, that's all I have for you today. I hope you found my story enjoyable. I don't know if it's interesting. It's just full of ups and downs, and a lot of hard times. But through that, there were some good times. So again, that's all I have for you today. Good luck in your next interview, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye now.